Daniel, are we ready?
I'm ready.
All right, welcome back to the Soman Podcast. I think my camera's over there. There we are. Welcome, everybody. My name is Matthew Brozick. We're having conversations we would have had anyway. We have a familiar guest for those fans of the show, which there are zillions out there now. We have Marissa Brostrom, and we're going to talk about. We're going to talk to you in a second.
I showered this time.
Oh, this is so great because now you knew that it's on video.
I was more prepared.
You got dressed.
I got dressed.
Have heels on. This is like
I got the beer I wanted.
Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed still of that first one. But you were our first episode guest, and now this is going to be like episode. It's somewhere between 19 or 21. I can't remember. Maybe it's episode 20. No,
that's awesome.
Yes, so you're our first recurring guest.
Think of how fast time has gone by because I remember when you guys were saying, "Do you want to come back after you open your second store?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, that's so far away." Sure, like. Year from now?
I know.
It's not.
I know. And now it's here.
Oh, it's here.
Okay, so I have to do a couple intro pieces really quick.
I'll
First,
be quiet.
I have to say, no, you're totally fine. You're an experienced guest. You know what to do. We'll be fine. Thank you to the Pastel Pencil for our Soman Podcast stickers, of which, if you haven't seen it before, Marissa, you got one of these. Everyone that's been on the podcast gets one of these cool stickers, and that's awesome. So if you see these running around town, whether they're sitting on a beer fridge or on someone's back window, that means that they were a part of the prestigious Soman podcast. We also want to thank Grain Belt Brewing in, I think they're in, are they in St. Pete? No, St. Paul?
They're in St. Pete.
No, I think they're in St. Paul. I think that's where they brew. I don't know. I'm going to get some hate mail for that. And then we also want to thank Bell's Two-Hearted, because that's the greatest beer of all time. Today, I haven't told you this yet, but today was one of those days for me that, no, this is going to be great. So today was one of those days where, like, if you just get bombarded with questions nonstop, and every time you try to put out a fire, the next fire starts, and you're just, like, going through the day, you're getting almost nothing of what you wanted to get done accomplished.
Story of my life.
Yes. And so you get done at the end of the day, and it's like, I don't know. Like your brain's kind of fried.
Like what happened?
What in the world just happened? So that's been my day. So to sit down and have probably my favorite beer ever with my favorite podcast guest, because you were the first one unknowingly, because so you have to be the favorite just by default. But I mean it too.
By default.
Well, I don't want to like offend all the other people.
You can offend them.
Yeah. So sorry, Lisa County. You were number 13. That's the first thing that Lisa said when she was on. She's like, "So does this mean there are 12 other people that you liked more than me?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, sorry, I didn't mean it that way." But anyway, so Lisa, if you're watching, you are awesome too. Thank you so much. And she helped guest host, so I should say good things about her. But welcome back.
Thanks.
Marissa Brostrom. That was the oddest intro to any episode I've ever done. Oh my gosh.
I was wondering what you're going to get me to drink.
Oh, well.
I was expecting either like a cocktail.
So I thought about doing the, because you said Crown Diet, right?
Yeah.
So I thought about doing that.
Yeah.
But then I didn't want to get like too squirrely being
it's
recorded.
Good you did it.
Yeah.
I haven't eaten today, so.
So maybe we'll save that one for the third appearance.
Oh, okay.
Maybe episode 40 or 60 or something. That's perfect.
Chain.
That's perfect.
Kidding.
Okay, so for those that haven't seen the first episode, we go through a lot of your whole life, how you got to where you are today, and the background. So now you are the owner of Graif Clothing.
Yeah.
Right? Did I get it right? Okay, I almost got it wrong. Whatever. Okay. Anyway, and the very end hook that we had on the last podcast was that you were opening another store, and once that happened, then we were going to have you back.
Yes.
So now go back 20 weeks or 30 weeks or whatever it's been since we originally.
When did we do the first one?
I don't know. It was like November, December of last year.
Well, I was the first one.
You were the first one.
Was your first episode?
We put out the first episode in December.
I think it was December.
Yes. It was.
I think we had done our live sale.
Yes.
And then we talked about that. How I wish I would have done it sooner. It was December.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
But it was before Christmas.
Correct.
Gosh.
Yeah. So we first
Feels
episode
like a month ago.
I know. It's not that long ago.
No.
But So we had talked about the store. You had opened another store. You had not thought that you were going to open another store, but all of a sudden opportunity came up. and you had started, not breaking ground is the wrong word because you didn't build the building, correct? You were renovating the building.
No. Yeah, and I honestly, like, so much has changed. Sorry. So much has changed, like, even from December. Because I think at that point we were still even unsure. Like, we had the goal date in mind, but there just was so many changes from when we talked last. It's like, yeah, we're going to open another store. We just really have no idea when because we just really don't know what's happening. But I look back now and I'm like, holy crap, we have a second store, and it just kind of happened.
So, like, for those, one of the hardest things from a non-entrepreneur to an entrepreneur, like, there's an adjustment of, like, having your own faith in yourself, of diving off the cliff and doing something that you're not totally sure of, or if it's going to work or if it's not going to work or any of those things. Like, did you have some reservations in opening a second store?
Oh yeah. I mean, we had no business for how long last year, and we are completely, I mean, to be 100% honest, like, hemorrhaging.
Yeah.
Like, no money. I mean, if you want me to be really real, we're posting zeros day after day after day.
Wow.
And you could about imagine somebody who thrives on seeing people and thrives on, obviously, sales. My life is sales. My life is seeing people. You could about imagine, well, I mean, it leads to a second store. Because that makes sense, spend more money when you have no money. Yeah, no, I mean, I had reservations. I like to consider myself a confident person, but I also doubt myself a lot. But if I don't think about it and I just go, that's when I'm more productive. If I stop to think about pros and cons, you can about imagine them and say, no, I shouldn't.
You'll talk yourself out of it.
I'll talk myself out of it. And I know that about myself, so that's why I'm just a go-do-it person.
Can you give an example of that?
Oh, God. I don't know.
Everything?
I opened a store.
All
I
the
would have
day.
sat and thought about this.
So how did that? So how the store first? We're going to get to the store and where it's at and all of
Yeah.
that. But how did the whole idea come about?
Well, Owatonna is our strongest customer base.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can't remember how much we already talked about. But Owatonna is our strongest customer base, has been for years. There used to be a store there, a men's store, very much like old Graif, Graif Clothing in St. Peter, all your, like, men's independent stores around. And they closed about 8 years ago.
Really?
8-ish years ago. And he was a big part in recommending and, being an advocate for Graif. He knew that our business model was much like his own, so he would push a lot of people to come our direction. And it just grew and grew, word of mouth, and you just start to retain those customers. And so it wasn't anything random by any means. It wasn't like, let's just pick Owatonna. It was thought about previously. We just truthfully never had time to look into it because we were always busy. I mean, just every month in our industry, you're always doing something, and you always just never really seem to have the time to think outside of the walls for the most part. And so when we were shut down last year, I mean, I was just sitting at the store, like, thinking, what on earth can I be doing? And I mean, I was posting on social media nonstop, but I mean, so was the rest of the world at the time. And so I kind of held back, and I told my husband, I said, why don't we look into Owatonna? This is something that's proven. My best customers live in Owatonna, truthfully. Some of them, not all, but some of them, most of them. And I was like, why don't we here's an idea. Why don't we just see if we can look into some spaces that we can rent for 4 months, fourth quarter? And anybody during the pandemic right now who has anything that's leasable isn't going to commit us to a month-long or a year-long contract.
Correct.
They're probably just going to be like, heck, if you're going to rent this for 4 months, here's a deal.
Yes.
My thing was we were going to be done with the pandemic at the time. We thought. And it'd just be a great way to have visibility over there and just kind of gain the momentum of getting more customers to come back to Mankato. When we were over there, we looked at like 20 different places. The chamber was amazing as a chamber. They showed us a bunch of different spots. You could just feel the community environment. Mind you, everything was shut down because this was like end of April. But you could just feel, I was surprised. Owatonna has a lot to offer. I was even surprised about it, looking at, what their economics, their business statistics, everything. It's crazy. And just how much they throughout this, after we committed, how everything just keeps popping up. They passed a new school board referendum, so they're having a whole new school being built. They're completely ripping up one of their new streets and building a Marriott with a new high-end restaurant, like 2 blocks away from us. So it's just like, not only are we there now, but we're slowly, it's just they're improving, and they have a lot of confidence in themselves as a community to keep the town going. So it wasn't random. We wanted to do this forever. We had the time to actually sit down and make it happen. And a lot of hurdles in the way. I'm glad we opened when we did. We're supposed to open right before, obviously, fourth quarter, September. And then it got pushed back to November. And then they were like, well, maybe January, February. And I was like, no. Like, at this point, we have to wait till the spring, which I'm glad we did. But, yeah.
Well, and I've seen the stuff and I try my best not to go on social media. And so I only have my only active account that I actually look at, other than posting episodes of the Soman podcast on the Facebook, Soman Facebook, whatever page. But I try my best not to go on social media. But my favorites are fishing on Instagram. So you got, like, I don't add anybody else except for fishing stuff, and then Graif Clothing. Because your stuff is hilarious. Like the stuff that you put on there, and we had talked about this last time, is you were, I don't know if, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but afraid of hopping into the TikTok world and doing a lot of that stuff. But I tell you, it's super creative. It's entertaining to watch, and you can look at some of that stuff. It's like, okay, well, that, I like that, or not like that, or whatever it is. But you're being very engaging. So I think that's really cool. Yeah. Especially coming back from where our first conversation was, which you didn't want to do any of that, and then you just put yourself out there. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been successful for you.
It has, yeah. Because we started doing it just a little bit before our first podcast, and we just continued with it. And people tell us all the time they enjoy it. So, I mean, we're just going to keep doing it. I mean, it's fun. It's fun for us because it's just kind of like so many chaotic things can go on during the day. So it's just fun for the staff to sometimes take a break and just, I don't know, do something creative.
And you have great staff.
Amazing staff.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it feels really good.
When you have the right people working for you that have the right motivations, the right ideas, and you can be collaborative and creative, like, there is nothing better than that.
I feel really fortunate. Don't get me wrong, it's a challenge. When you're in a small business, I'll be very blunt about it. I mean, I have to be reminded by my mentors. I have certain people that I look up to that know the struggles of the industry and what I'm doing. And I get reminded often that no one's going to have the same passion as you do. Yeah. No one will. Because I put so much passion into what I do, and I love what I do, that I just, sometimes I'm just like, how do they not get this? And, this was always in the past and whatnot. But truthfully, I mean, when you just really find your team, there is nothing that you can feel better about than taking on risk like this, knowing that in your back pocket you have the most supportive staff. We have great staff. Yeah. So I feel fortunate, especially like right now. I mean, there's always the challenges. I mean, retail is always one of those kind of evolving things. You'll be like, finally, I got it. And then a month later, it's like, oh my God, they're leaving. Shoot. And then you take it personally. And then it's just like, no, it's just, where they're at in their life. And it's just one of the hurdles of owning your own business. Not only on the forefront to the public do you put pressure on yourself, but you put pressure on yourself with the people that you provide for too. So it's just kind of a circle, 2 circles always interacting with each other.
Isn't that, as a business owner, like, I legitimately feel responsible not only for my own family and providing for them, which is the original reason why I started, but providing for the people that are there. And like, I go see, like, they'll bring by their kids to say hi or something. And it's like, I feel completely responsible for each of those kids. It's like, I can't let this screw up. I need to do my job, full job, 100%. Because if I screw this up, we're like, how are they going to eat and, make car payments and do all the other things for those other families? And like, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel a complete, I I don't even know what the right word is, but
you feel responsible.
I feel
them.
responsible. I do.
Like they're your children.
I do. I legitimately do.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you find businesses that have good staff that want to be there and understand that is because they feel that from you, that you feel a responsibility toward them, not just, hey, go stack, the shelves over there and, order some shoes and peace, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? There's a whole different culture that you can create.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And I mean, it gets to the point sometimes, you get stressed out about it too, because you're just like, you feel bad. You go through these phases where you want to do so much, and then you start to question yourself, am I doing enough for their family? Am I doing enough to make sure they're happy? Am I doing enough to show them that how much I care about them? And that's just another kind of evolving circle, especially when you get so busy you don't even realize that you're like, oh my God, it's been 3 weeks, and 3 weeks later and I forgot their birthday. And then it like, holy crap, you just like get down on yourself. It's just those little things, which I think leads to how small businesses should be, though.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think you being a customer can tell that. I mean, they're not going to be good at what they do if they don't like the environment they in. And just as a customer, you can tell that right away, especially with how public we are. You can tell if somebody is enjoying their job or not really easily if you were to look at Graif's page.
When it's funny, like I walk up and I'll walk up and I'll walk in and they remember my name, which is way different. Like you don't have that very often in very many businesses. Now, I'm not in there all that often. And so funny story that we were talking about beforehand is when I got dressed today and I put this gear on. So for anybody who's actually watching, this is a piece, I don't even know what you call this. What do you call this?
It's like kind of a shirt jacket.
Okay. All right.
But a flannel mix, but it's not a flannel.
Okay. Well,
you would think it's a flannel.
I sent you a text message of like a picture of like my favorite shirt ever. I'm like, hey, I want more of these. Like, do you have these? And you're like, yeah, come on down. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So I walked in, picked this gear up, and when I got dressed this morning, I promise I did not actually wear this just because you were on. I threw it on, but then I was eating breakfast with Lisa, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got my gear on from Graif. So anyway, and my shoes actually.
I noticed that already.
My Johnson Murphys, which are super dirty. I need to take care of these things. Oh my gosh, I wear them almost every day.
They're so comfortable.
They're amazing.
It's our number one shoe still.
I wear them all the time.
I know.
They're my favorites.
They're great.
So
we have them in golf now.
I saw that. Yeah. Okay, because there was something I was looking at, and
Do you golf?
Well, not well.
I mean,
no, I like to have a beer outside.
Yeah, on the golf course.
On the golf course.
Yeah, you need golf shoes then.
I do. I should get some golf shoes.
It counts. You're close enough.
I mean, I'll look fine, like I know what I'm doing.
You gotta look the part, then you're good.
Well, I'm a terrible golfer.
Everybody just looks the part anyway.
Oh my gosh. But no, the point of it is like when I walked in to the store and I'm like, hey, this is kind of what I'm looking for. Then you grab me, I don't know, it was like 2 or 3 things. And we walk back, and I tried them on, and you're like, okay, that one, nope, not so great. That one, maybe, but this one, for sure. Like, that one looks great. Yeah. That's the one you need. I'm like, okay. I'll just take your word for it. I don't know. And then I got home, and I put it on, and I'm like, hey, Lisa, what's this look like? And she's like, wow, it looks really good. So the point is my wife thought I looked good in it, which really, that's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
So then the point, so you were willing to tell me, no, that one. Maybe that one, but that one for sure. So
I do like to think that I am good at being honest.
In a nice way.
Yeah,
Super
in a nice way.
Not in a bad way at all.
I try. Depends on how the person's going to perceive it. But.
Yeah. I would much rather have that than walk out with stuff that I don't like.
Well, and some customers, I've had somebody in the past, they're like, oh, I kind of like this. And I'll be like, okay. If you like it, then, if you feel like you're going to wear it well and you feel good in it, that's all that counts. But I'm just telling you out of these items, what fits you better and just what, to my impression looking at you, And they're like, and then I tell them, they're like, well, you just trying to make a sale. And I'm like, I'm telling you not to get a shirt and to get another shirt. I'd try to be selling you both right now if that was the case.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're a reflection on me. So no lies. That's what you try to tell your staff too. Like if someone goes out there and you just wanted to get a sale out of them, it's like it's a reflection on you at the end of the day.
Well, you should tell the story which you shared with me earlier about how you ask your son questions and he gives you interesting answers about whatever your outfits look like.
So if I ask my son, who's 3, if I say, Bud, does this look good? Because he is, I kind of just foresee his future as being my little fashionista. He's the one already very interested in he's very specific already. Mm-hmm. And right now his word is never. So I'm like, Bud, does this look good? So of course his answer is like, never. And he says it like that too. He's like, never. And so there's already a confidence boost right there. But then if I don't ask him and I'll just put on a dress or something, and he's like, oh, you're wearing a pretty dress today? And I'll be like, are some of my dresses not pretty? You know? And then it's just like his little response, like, I didn't really understand that, but just runs away.
He doesn't know he's ensuing that half the stuff you wear looks weird and half of it, is pretty. But
yeah. I guess we're at the point where he now knows if I'm going to work based on what I wear.
That's okay, though.
Yeah.
So do my kids, but it's at this point, I'm about 3 days in the office and 2 days at home.
Yeah.
So kind of getting back to norm. And a lot of the people that I'm meeting with are getting into that world of kind of getting back to normal of.
We can tell.
In a conference room and all that. And this is a good segue. Yeah. So we were talking about how like a light switch just flipped. So tell me what you meant by that.
It was October. So last year after we were open, I mean, it was slow. Like, don't get me wrong. We got to reopen. I wasn't expecting much. We still had a lot of weddings going on, surprisingly, and that kept us really busy. And we had a lot of people who were just really wanting to show support. So we were actually pretty, I wouldn't say busy. We were just pretty, like, consistent. Mm-hmm. But when October came, like, literally that first time it snowed, it flipped off. Mm. We had an okay holiday season. It's what I was expecting if we're going through a pandemic. It wasn't spectacular. It wasn't, it also wasn't like, oh my God, like we have to close the store down. It was so bad. It just kept me thinking, we started those live sales then. It just kept us going and, we just got to keep pushing. But it was a struggle. I mean, it was a struggle. And, you're preparing to open the second store you're spending all this money with literally no money coming in, just with the hopes of like, okay, we'll balance back out when we reopen, which you open a second store and you hope it's just like, oh, with all this extra money. We've had a few people say like, oh my God, you must be doing so well because you're opening a second store. And I don't blame them for thinking that. It is not the case. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those. I'm one of those. Let's just keep trying to grow. Let's just try to keep pushing through. I looked at it as when things come back to normal, I wanted to be ready and prepared on top. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to wait and just see what happens. I'm not good at that. I'm not patient. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it's scary. I wanted to bring all of my staff back full time. I'm like sitting here, I have to start hiring for this store, but oh my God, what if we're not busy? What if things don't come back? And then I have all this staff I have to care for. And so, I mean, we were spread really thin because we were just so uncertain. And
can I pause just for a second? Because I'm really interested in this part. I haven't asked you this question. So when you talk about being impatient, like I'm a pretty impatient person also. Like I'm like, business opportunity, let's go. Like I'm just going to keep rocking and keep going. And you had talked about how you talk yourself out of things if you're just going to sit and dwell on it and all of that. And so one of the things about running your own business is you can often outrun the front of your skis and all of a sudden you start toppling over. Yeah. So does your husband have, like, do you pair well with him and in that? Do you both just jump off the cliff? No. Or is he kind of like pulling you back? Like, should we check this out quick? Like, tell me about that dynamic without, getting into like marital counseling or something like that. I mean, because at least I want him here to defend himself. Yeah.
Marital counseling right now. But we definitely know. No, we completely... I'm the one who is flipping over the skis where he is standing on the back of the skis, making sure I don't like fully go on my neck.
Yes. Yep.
I get the crazy ideas. What's awesome about him is he looks into it for me. With the Owatonna thing, he was so on board. He's the one who called the chamber. This is our plan. We want to bring a business there. How do we do this with a pandemic? But he is also the person to make sure it's realistic. And I will say, during this whole process, I had the confidence, like, this is going to work. This is going to work. I promise. Because, I mean, on his end, he's the money guy. He's the one, I know money pretty well, but he's, like, the one who's, like, knows, like, to the penny money. Where me, I can just kind of, like, this will balance itself off. But in a 5-month span.
In general, we should be fine.
I mean, in a year we'll be good. It'll be good. And I mean, he does real estate, does insurance. He started his retirement when he was like 8 years old, if that kind of goes to show you just who he is. I mean, worked full time while he's in middle school, doing construction stuff, and just always been your money manager, go-getter, workaholic. So we both have that same like go, 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 but he is definitely just the smart ways about it. He's more patient. Like, okay, nope, we should wait till this time of year to invest in this type of stuff. So no, we balance each other really well. I will say that there was a time there, I remember, so I'm just going to tell this story. So Chad, and I feel really bad because his business is on Belgrade. And he's the one who has those cool motorcycles, and I can't even think of his last name. We went to go look at some cool like signage, display stuff, like old signs like in our store, like gas pumps and stuff. And I remember we were chatting with him, and I could tell it was February. It was a slow month. I mean, it was bad. Here, like we need this, with nothing coming in. Rare, like barely anything. And we sat in the car, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to work, because I was all excited. Like, we just bought some cool, like, decor things, and he, like, whips out this packet, which he's notorious for. He, like, loves making Excel spreadsheets.
And then he prints them off and staples them together. And...
Oh, he does.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, I'm like, oh, God.
He's like, you were indicted at that point.
I was. He had me in the car. He had me like, do you have a minute?
Did he lock the door?
And I immediately shut down in those situations because I know it's bad news. Like, I know he's being about to get realistic with me where I just like don't want to hear it. And he's like, can we just look at this? Like, this is how we're sitting. This is where we're at. Blah, blah, blah. And all I kept responding to him was just like, just trust me. Like, it'll be good. I promise. You know, like it just got to like a real point where we're taking such a big leap with no certainty if it's going to be good or not. We had, even in February, nobody still even knew what the pandemic was going to look like in a few months. I mean, vaccines were just coming out. Nobody knew. And I just remember being like, just wait until we get open. And then if we are still in this like predicament, like, then we'll start adjusting more. But like, I'm not going to not open a store to its full capacity, because that's our first impression too. And so if anything, if we can just take this like plunge to make the investment, if you can just do anything anywhere, let's just get through like June. In my eyes was like June was going to be like the turning point as far as, you know, how well it's going to do, how much we're going to have to keep investing in it and whatnot. And it was like kind of, I felt like he always brings me these Excel spreadsheets, but it was kind of the first time where I like saw fear in his eyes, because he normally doesn't. He always is the one backing me up, holding me back, but backing me up, and trusting me. And he comes up with business ideas too. I mean, I'm not the only one. You know, he's definitely the smart one. He's a very much put money, return on investment type person. And it's hard for him, not being in the retail industry, to see the return on investment at such a large scale when you're at such a bottom. You know, it's easy for him in a house because he knows a house. He's like, if I buy this house at this, I can flip it for this and make this on it. It's easy. So it was like it was a very real moment where I'm like, oh my God, he's scared. Now I'm scared. Now I feel bad. Great.
So how was work that day?
Oh, I went to work and I remember telling Maddie, I'm like, I was in a mood, and my manager Maddie like knows too, and even Hank, and because they all know Matt really well, my husband. I mean, we all definitely very family environment, and even our Taylor Julie. I was just like, Matt showed me numbers this morning, and blah blah blah. And now I'm just all.
So did the fear from Matt translate to the staff?
No. They know him. They know he just gets like, because he just sees the bills. Yes. I mean, imagine just seeing bills come through your desk all day, every day.
Yeah.
And then you look at our sales for the day and you're like, oh, dear God. Oh, dear God. You know, and it's just kind of that waiting game, like I said, with no certainty. For them, though, they're like, tell him it's going to be fine. And then Maddie, she's over there because she's the one running the store. She's like, I'm like concerned we're not going to have enough. She's over there thinking like we're going to need to buy more. And I'm like,
And you're stuck in the middle. And so does that stuff keep you up at night? The uncertainty of what's going on versus what needs to be done. Your staff tells you this, Matt tells you that. Like, that has to wear on you.
Oh, yeah, it does entirely. I mean, that's also on just the side of a regular job day to day.
Yeah.
That's a totally like in the background.
Mm-hmm.
It wears on you because you're still trying to be like, okay, even though we have this to look forward to, we're still doing bad with business right now. What can we be doing just right now?
Mm-hmm.
Like post on social media, do a sale, do this, get this.
Yep.
So, I mean, then you still have that on top of it, too. I mean, it's just never ending.
Mm-hmm.
My job, but I love it. So, I mean, it's always different. It's just
not a complaint.
never. What's that?
This is not a complaint.
It's not a complaint. It's just
it's just a
never
fact.
ending.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just what our industry is. Like, you're always just kind of chasing the next thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I found interesting, I was looking back today. Long story short, I was looking for this picture that I had to find because I was trying to explain this to a person. And I was going through and I found a picture of myself in, let's see, this was December of 2019. Mm-hmm. Okay. So like when the world still made sense. And my beard was longer because in December, usually in the later part of the year, I'll just grow it longer for whatever reason because it's like Christmas time. But like I noticed, I saw a picture of it and like there was hardly any gray in my beard at all. And you go fast forward till now, like you grow, it is like gray all over. I have gray on each sides of my head. Like I don't know if gray hair and stress actually like coincide at all or whatever, but if they do,
I think so.
I'm definitely like I have 10 times more gray hair than I did 18 months ago.
It's funny you bring that up because we're at a wedding Saturday and I was in the church and I was just looking at Matt and I'm like, oh my God, you have a lot of gray hair. And he just looked at me like, do you see what I deal with on the daily?
And then
a
did he
2-year-old,
flip
a
you an Excel
3-year-old
spreadsheet?
I know.
Look at that.
I know. This is what it is. I love how his answer's not even the kids. Like, that's the least of his worries. It's just like.
It's like, it's you.
I mean, he's just
my gosh, that's so funny. But I resonate with that story so much because there was a time, this is now prior to this is 7 years ago now, but so maybe 7, 8 years ago, so about 7. But so my wife Lisa was doing all the books because she's the numbers, I'm the like you, I'm the hey, this is a good idea. Let's go chase this shiny thing for a while.
Do it.
And she's like, why would we do that? And so she's doing the books, and all of a sudden she gets done that day. She comes in my office and like sits down. She's like, I don't know if I did this wrong, but how are you going to make payroll next week? And I'm like, ugh. Like you just like feel almost deflated. Like, oh crap. I knew that was coming, but I was hoping you wouldn't notice. But you did. Uh-oh. Sorry. But literally she looks at me and she's like, how are you going to make payroll next week? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm gonna.
Yeah. And
she's like, how? I'm like, look. And I had at this point, I had a whiteboard very similar to the size of this, and I had all the tracks of all the different, business and where it was and, how it was coming in and when it was, all of that. And so I'm like, look, this is my plan. It might happen next week. It might happen tomorrow. It might happen today. And the very next day, I talked to so many people and they're all like, yep, we're about ready. We need to do this, whatever. The next day, I'm getting phone calls like, okay, yeah, I know we talked and we're ready to go. Yeah. Like close 15 deals in a row. And it was like, ever since then, it's just been amazing. But I resonate with that point in time when you start to doubt yourself a little bit of like, God, did I really screw this up? I
mean, somebody just asked me last Friday because he noticed as a customer and he's just like, I saw you open a second store and he's like, how's it going through the pandemic and everything? And I just said, it is what it is. I mean, we're here. We're happy. We're doing great now. I said it was hard. And he's just like, do you have any doubts? And I just said, no, I don't. Like, I truly don't have a single, like, doubt. He's like, do you regret anything about, like, buying the business and stuff? And I said, no. Because I look at where I would have been if I didn't own the business and we were going through the pandemic. And I am actually glad I was in the position I was in because I was able to take such a leap of faith and have that call to do so. And then I feel like it's just helped me as a business person make me a stronger person individually. It's also, I think, truthfully going to bring our family to another level that I wouldn't have had as an opportunity. But just even in general, even if there wasn't a pandemic, if I have time to sit there and think, then yeah, I'm going to pull back. So if I just keep going and doing, I see myself be a better person, a stronger person. And
the energy to keep doing that.
But it is a lot of energy to keep doing that.
But it's the faith in yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I keep going back to. It's like, should we do this? And like Lisa, I come up with a big idea. I'm like, hey, guess what? We're going to do X.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, isn't that a lot of time, effort? And she doesn't say it exactly like this, but it's like, isn't that a lot of time, effort, work, money, investment, all the stuff? I'm like, yeah.
Let's go.
You wish we did?
I know.
And she's like, that doesn't sound worth it. I'm like, but it is, and then dive off the cliff again and you figure it out. And then once you create that little thing, then you move forward. And I find that that adventure is so like intoxicating.
And what's crazy is so I work Monday through Saturday. Like Sundays are kind of like our family day. Like I just prefer to have Sundays off. It's like our family day. And every single Sunday we go through the same thing at home. I'm like, okay, what activity are we going to do today? My husband's like, oh my God.
Can we just
sit down? Like stay at home today? And I'm like, this is my one day. I want to go do an activity. Yeah. And it's always miserable because we go do an activity. 2-year-old's crying. 3-year-old wants to do this. Matt's just not wanting to do anything. He's like,
and you're like, everybody, it's going to be great.
This is so much fun. And then he's just like, with how much like you're always going, he's like, can't you just like sit for a weekend? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No.
I know.
Let's go.
So I have a really interesting story. Just another cool part about being an entrepreneur. And then we're going to get back to the original part of the store and inflection point and the light switch. But so my grandpa, who's a big inspiration to me. So he graduated high school, married my grandma, and anyway, long story short. So he ends up, after a number of years, he's selling now his business to his 2 sons. Yeah. And his 2 sons take it over, and a few years into it is 07, 08, and they're in construction and all that. So, I mean, they're just like, it goes from, everything's fine to 0. So he's talking with and this is a really cool story to hear them all 3 talk about now. But so my 2 uncles and my grandpa, but he's like, hey, here's what you need to do. You need to put up these big apartment buildings. And if anyone watching and I'm getting this wrong, I apologize, but you should come on the show and you should tell the story yourself. So sorry. But my grandpa's like, hey, you need to put up these apartment buildings. And they're all like, are you nuts? Like, there's nothing going on. Like, we need to just shut down. He's like, no. Here's what you do. You need to put up these apartment buildings. And because all these people are going to lose their home, they need somewhere to live. And there's, look at the numbers, look at the spreadsheet and say, they need a place to live. There's nowhere else to live.
There's nothing. Yeah.
And so they need to downsize. They need to save money. They need to do these things. And this is, and they ended up doing that. And now that was a huge springboard for them moving forward. But they were willing to do something when other people were unable or unwilling to do it for themselves. And you look at yourself, I hear that same story of look, I know this sounds weird. I know everything's kind of shut down right now. And I know your Excel sheet says no, but I guarantee this is going to be great.
What's funny was the whole idea was just to do a pop-up. And then I left Owatonna that day we need a second store. We're doing it. And my husband's like, what? Let's just look at the numbers. Yeah. Let's just play it out. Let's just see it. And I'm over there just being like, yeah, obviously we'll look at the numbers, of course. And I'm just like, I can do this.
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
I know, yeah.
Okay, so you were talking about, this was 20 minutes ago before I went on a tangent, but you were talking about a light switch just flipped.
So
tell me more about
October,
that.
went off, struggle. And I was just like, okay, I know April's going to be busy. I just know it's going to be busy. It's just, obviously we have a second store. We're going to be busy. Things are starting to come back, springtime. People are getting antsy if the weather's nice, whatever. And so I wasn't expecting it to get, I was expecting it just to get busy because we have a second store. Not busy because we're going to have a second store and each store was going to skyrocket. And that's what happened. And to be really honest, I'm so exhausted right now, but it I mean, Owatonna is exceeding what we anticipated. It's exceeding our original goal numbers, which is really, really awesome. It feels really good. A low-key part of me is kind of like, I told you, Matt. And, he's not looking at it like that at all. I'm not even going to bring it up unless he watches this now, but it's like low-key joke.
But it is, like, it's a competition against yourself.
Yeah,
a lot of it is. It's not like you have to outcompete everybody else or you need to be like, nana, boo-boo whole thing, which is a weird thing to say because whatever, that's not even what you say. But you kind of understand it's a competition of, can I succeed at this? Am I capable of doing this?
Yeah, I think that's what makes, an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so, but... like one of the things this month that we were not planning on was like prom. And so, like I do the April schedule, like probably going to spend a lot of time over there. And we open our store April 5th. Like everything's going pretty smooth. And when I say that, the opening construction, everything was not smooth. It was chaos. But we still open the day we were planning to open. And
so what like explain that. So the construction wasn't done. Like the guys are still pounding nails, and you're like cutting.
And it's nobody's fault. I mean, it's just how it is, and it just was very cutthroat. As far as when we were told we can be in there, they were going to be done with construction. The timeline was ABC, but then you have all your just miscellaneous things that you just don't think about that just keeps delaying. Weather. I mean, just so many different. External things you can't control, uncontrollables.
Yes.
And but we were like, we already started advertising this date, so no matter what, we need to start this process. And so not only are you already walking on construction and product, and there's dirt. I mean, just to say it's even dirty, and you're trying to set up a beautiful new store when you still have construction back and forth. I mean, crazy back and forth. We had this event planned over there. It was just a networking event, really small. But it was a way for me to network and meet with individuals and just literally around my block. I mean, I would say probably like 100 people came. We had a cater, a keg, and it wasn't sales or anything was not the goal. It was just literally so I could connect with people because I was not familiar. And same with my manager and our staff. And the issue is there's this big issue with our occupancy, our certificate of occupancy, because we were waiting on what would be the handicap entrance. Long story short, we got our certificate of temporary occupancy an hour before this event. We were like, you could about imagine the stress I was going through. I mean, we were still like trying to set stuff up. We were there. I mean, this event started at 5, and I just remember at 4 o'clock, my people were like, Marissa, you need to stop bringing product out. Like, we need to, like, right now, we just like need to clean up and make it, because I was like, no, like, get this out. I needed to make it look, to my vision. And we got that. But that was the Thursday before we planned on opening a Monday. So we opened right after Easter. And I just want to open Monday, no grand opening or anything. And I'm so thankful we didn't plan a grand opening. Because I would say that we are still waiting on like 3 big wall fixture units and just this whole, even customers over there like, oh my God, this looks so much better. And we would tell customers like, bear with us. We're still getting stuff in. So, and we literally, so we had our temporary occupancy until the elevator whole situation that was tied to us because it's our handicap, but wasn't part of our space, which is the frustrating part. We had 1 month of temporary occupancy, and the elevator had to be approved at the end of the month. And it got approved 2 days before it was up. So we're just watching that construction crew every day. If I saw one of them sitting there, I'm like, what you doing?
We got 5 days.
Like, hello. It was just last Monday. Just got approved last Monday.
Oh my gosh. So when was the date that you had your opening?
The 5th, April 5th.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but now we're like in the clear. Now we're good. So we're good now. But, it's just been doing really well. And I mean, the community is great over there. I love it. Small town. I'm a small town person. So I love it.
You're from St. Clair.
Yeah.
Which I learned all about.
Yep.
Yeah. And you met Matt in a Dairy Queen drive-through.
Yeah.
You put your number in his. Yeah. It's amazing all the stuff that I've learned of people. You put your number in his drive-through bag, basically said on a napkin, said call me, and like a month later you were moving in with him?
Yeah. I would say a couple weeks later. Yeah, like a month later.
That's
I would say moving in with him, I moved in.
Okay.
Like, I was like, hi.
Yeah, mom and dad moving in with, which, yeah, I won't even get into that. But that was one of my favorite stories of like all the podcasts that we've done. And I'm like, so how long was that? You're like, a month. I'm like,
Matt will still joke. He's like, most expensive Dairy Queen in my life.
actually, yes, that's 100% right.
it
Yeah,
is.
well, he could have just not sent anything back or like,
It's his
whatever.
fault.
He could have.
His fault. So
Well, it sounds like it was a good thing that he said yes, because
worked out.
isn't it interesting to operate as a team, and you have one that's gung ho jump off the cliff, and the other's like, okay, I'm sorry, your parachute straps need to be buckled before you jump off the cliff.
But what's funny is like for him, he is so quick to make like those investments too. So like he will jump off that cliff
if he sees it.
if he sees it.
Yes.
Yeah. His are just more like the immediate return, so it's hard for those long-term things for him.
Mm-hmm.
So
is the Owatonna store anything different than the Mankato store, or is it really similar with what you carry
very
and all the
similar. Definitely just, I mean, you walk in, it's just same environment, just more modernized, I guess you can say. Aesthetic, everything very similar. Product, I mean, almost identical.
Okay.
Obviously, we're going to be learning this whole next year what we need to cater more towards Owatonna versus Mankato. Right off the bat, though, we're just splitting product. I mean, you got to learn. And we're telling customers that, too. Like, give us feedback. We want to know feedback. We want to know what your preference is. And we're just kind of like learning. Traffic flows are definitely very different already. Same customer experience, same customer, though, mentality as far as expectations and, what they're looking for.
So how do you track customer flow? Like, do you have a tally on a whiteboard somewhere?
Tell.
You can,
yeah,
but
you
so
can just feel it.
So with that, it's like, okay, we have a lot of people right away in the morning. We have some right at noon, and then it's majority of our stuff is 4 to 6. Like, how does the work? How does the
You
flow
don't
of people go?
track it by any means. You just kind of pay attention to it. But it's always evolving and always changing too.
Okay.
You'll just be like, oh my God, last Saturday is crazy. I should probably, these next few Saturdays, throw more people on. And then you'll be busy those Saturdays, and then you'll finally have a Saturday that dies off. And then the next 4 or 5 Saturdays will just be dead.
Really?
Yeah. So it's never like it's consistent for periods. So you adjust as you go. But in Mankato, we just always know what's happening and what to plan for. If there's Rib Fest, we're going to be probably slow that weekend. So it's just throw a couple people on. There's prom. It's going to be wild. We had prom. That was what the flip of a switch was. Not only did we open the second store, and it was like really crazy busy with the excitement. They announced prom was happening, which we did not think was going to happen because we're already so close.
Which, thank God they are.
Thank God. Oh, my God. Yeah, I was so happy to have the kids back, and, like, everyone's just in a good mood. They were just happy to have prom. I was happy to have it. I mean, I've been going in at, like, 6 in the morning. My staff has been, like, working overtime, so thank you. Just to make sure that we're just trying to stay up on top of everything. So, I mean, that's what I mean by, like, flip of a switch. But
isn't that incredible? Because I noticed this year there was a switch that flipped. Same thing with my stuff is all of a sudden, like whoever, I mean, people that I talked to 5-6 years ago, they were like, no, not for me. And then all of a sudden they're calling me, 3 in a day. And they're like, hey, you know what? You remember me, Bob Smith, and we talked, a long time ago. I'm like, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, how are you?
I mean, how 5 years goes by in a flash. I'm like, I could tell you everything we talked about in the last conversation with Bob Smith, who was fictitious, but like, all of a sudden he's like, yeah, hey, we need to figure this out. I'm like, okay. And it's been wild. And it's amazing. But isn't that funny how business is never it's never just consistent. It's never like you're drowning or you're wondering what the hell's going on.
100%. When I say it's a flip of a switch, it's like, oh my God, I can't keep up.
Yep.
But now what's going to happen is probably like right after proms, we have it for like the next 3 weeks. I'm going to sit there and be like, oh my God, I miss how busy it was. Like, what are we going to do, you guys? What are we going to do? Both stores are slow. Holy crap. I'm going to go through this panic phase.
Yeah.
And then my staff goes like, you always go through this. Just wait. It always comes back.
Isn't that funny though?
And then it does. And then I'm like, oh, I can't keep up.
They just have to laugh. Like I have my direct gal, her name is Sarah, and she's absolutely amazing. And she just laughs at me like, because I'll do the same thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, can you believe this? This is unbelievable. Like, we can't even keep up. Like, I go home and my brain is just fried.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel bad because I'll go home and Lisa has been around a bunch of kids all day. Yeah. And so she just wants to talk to an adult. I've been talking to adults all day. And so I just want to just sit like this. Do nothing, and she just wants to like. So, how was your day? We want to talk. This is what happened. What do you want? And I'm just like, oh my gosh. But so that's always a unique dynamic. But oh my gosh, like it is. Isn't that fun though? Like when your brain is just like done, it's just melted. At the end of the day, it's like I accomplished some shit.
I actually don't mind that because it kind of becomes entertaining amongst my staff. Like we do get to a point where we just say, sorry, but we're just kind of like. At this point, it. Like, what else could happen? What else could throw at it? But, like, we'll start sending memes or something.
Yeah.
Like, there's this funny one, like, of a golf cart just driving in the water and everyone's just smiling, just going underwater. Like, when you're drowning, but you're used to it now. Yeah. Like, we're all laughing. So we're like, what else can be thrown on top of this? But
those are amazing life lessons, though. Like, for you, your staff,
it kind of brings you closer when you all can just kind of joke about, like, you're all just so fried, but that you just kind of keep going, and then you just like we've had moments where, and we have some new people too, so it's like just new people on top of it, and I'm like, I'm really sorry, but you're going to be thrown into prom your first week, so good luck, is what I told this guy we just hired a couple weeks ago. He did great, but he was like, he knows prom, and he's like, oh my God, yeah. And I'm like, it can go from 0 to 100 before you even realize it. Yeah. And it's just funny because you can kind of just sit there and just joke about it, and you just take a breather, and you're like, holy crap.
It's fun, though.
Yeah, it is fun. That's what I thrive for. So,
change gears. What do you do for fun other than go bonkers for your business?
I like to do activities.
You said that earlier. Come on, everybody, wake up. It's Sunday.
I do. Oh, I do. I get so excited. I am always planning, like, oh, we should go to the zoo this Sunday. We should go to the aquarium this Sunday. We should go to Sibley Park and look at the animals this Sunday. Like, I'm always like, what's the activity? Like, I'm your fair goer, your parade goer, your activity doer.
So what's some of your favorite ones that you've done? Not necessarily in the last probably year, because there hasn't been a lot of activities like the fair or something. But like, what's some of the stuff that you guys do? 4th of July
parades. In St. Peter, the big one. I live for that. I make my husband go down there, stake it out. Everyone hates people that do that, but I do it. Oh yeah. He hates it. I make him do it, but he does it. We stake it out. Family comes over. I truly love that. We're big lake people. Okay. We are big lake people. So I would say we're big golfers and big lake people. Okay. So if you ask what I do for fun, that's what we do.
So what lake?
Any opportunity. What?
What lake?
We keep our pontoon on Washington at Washington Club. So
okay. Yeah. So we're big lake people. Yeah. Like I have a serious affinity for water. Yeah. But what was really funny is my dad, when I was growing up, like this is I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, which is crazy now because my oldest Owen is 8. Yeah. And so like what's really crazy is now you think back as a parent, it's like that's what the dynamic was, and I don't feel that old, but I look at my dad, I'm like, he was old at that point, But I remember him talking, and we were on the boat. It's like 1985 Glastron, like an 18.5-foot Glastron with an Evinrude 185. I can still smell that motor. Like we were on that boat a lot, but I remember I'm like, Dad, why do we have to go on the boat as a family, And he'd be like, well, because you can either stay on the boat and have fun, or you can swim to shore. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I walked up to the front, but I remember him saying that. Yeah. And isn't that so much fun being on the water as a family on the pontoon? It's like there's really nothing. A
big fisher.
Really?
Like, yeah. So he used to live in Florida. And,
really?
Yep. And so he just like outside of his job, he worked as a mate on like charter boats and stuff, just because he enjoyed fishing, and it was like a way for him to go fishing without like going fishing. But his family has like a charter like boat down there, and so it's like one of his biggest hobbies. And I've always been a lake person, so he's really gotten me into that, and I really enjoy it. So we go down there a lot. But just if we get a date day, so we go to Washington and we have our pontoon, and it's like we do that as a family because it's like a cage, so we can trap the kids in there.
Perfect.
But they do have a bass fishing boat, and he loves your fishing. Him and his dad love bass fishing, love going to different lakes. And every now and then, if we get a chance to have like a date day, we'll just go to like a different lake. And it's been a long time since we've had that, but truly like lake trying to be outdoors as much as we can. I wouldn't say we're your outdoorsy people, though. We're not like your camping, hiking, walking, running, trail people.
Yeah.
We enjoy it for like maybe a mile, then we're like, okay, let's go back.
Yeah.
But we do just like love lake. I mean, we're just here. Let's sit outside, have a cocktail, and relax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
It is fun.
So does your oldest son is 3?
Yeah.
Your oldest, you have two kids, right?
3 and 2.
3 and 2, and is it a boy, girl?
Boy.
Boy, okay.
Yeah.
So is it Oliver?
Oliver and Conway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a really cool story. So if Matt, if you're going to watch, this is the part you care about. So if he really likes bass fishing, I'm a huge muskie fisherman.
Yeah.
Like I have a very awful affinity. Awful is a weird word, but like love muskie fishing. Okay. So my son now last year, so he's 7, Owen is 7, and he's like, Dad, I really want to bass fish. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll do whatever fishing you want because I just like being on the water.
Yeah.
So we start doing these Thursday night bass league things, tournaments. Well, the very first one, like, I'm way out of sorts because we're fishing against my best friend and his buddy, and I'm very competitive, and so I can't lose to these guys. And this is like on Lake. This is German. Okay, so we're out on German, so it's not like we're around the state.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden we catch some fish, whatever, and we ended up doing okay that tournament. But now fast forward, we're on Lake Francis, and this is probably the 5th tournament of the year. And so Owen and I are fishing against all these dudes. There's probably like 22 boats.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm the only one with a kid. And I'm not a bass fisherman. I'm a muskie fisherman. Like I just bought my own, my first bass rod and reel. Like I'm very new to it. And so is Owen.
Yeah.
And so we end up catching our 4 fish, which you'd bring in your top 4 fish to weigh. And we end up catching this really big kicker fish. Anyway, so we win that night, biggest bass, which is a payout, and then the biggest bag, which is a payout.
See, what an experience.
Oh my gosh. So I got to tell this really quick story because I hope your husband watches this because this is the best.
I'll make him.
So he'll know what this means, but we've caught our first 3 of our 4 fish, skipping Texas rig, beavers under docks. Then I noticed on my electronics, which everyone has shut this podcast off at this point, except for him. So this is literally just for your husband because he'll know what this means. This is just for him, who I've never met him, but we'll be best friends after this. I noticed on my graph that there was a secondary weed point, or a secondary weed line on this point of coontail, which is a different kind of weed that I think a lot of big fish like to sit in. So I go drop shot on this. I mean, I'm the only one.
You sound like a fish.
He would love this. He would. This is not for you. I'm not trying to converse with you anymore.
I have one fishing pole, and I catch whatever fish is going to be catching.
I am totally vicariously talking through your microphone into the camera and into your husband.
I'm going to go home and be like, have you ever caught a fish in a coontail?
No, you need to talk. You tell him this, that I caught the tournament winning fish drop shotting on a secondary coontail point. Like he would love that. He'll watch this and he'll figure it out. So we catch this fish, and like I told Owen when I had it on, I'm like, dude, this is the fish, this is it. And he has the net. And so he nets it, and we bring it in the boat, and we are jumping up and down like father and son, hugging each other, like freaking out.
Cute.
And when you're in a tournament, you don't freak out when you catch a big fish because then everyone knows that you just caught a big fish. We don't care. We're spot. We're jumping up and down. So we
wonder where it is.
So we go in, we weigh our fish, and my son is just jacked because they're like in second place. And Dan Sprague, Jackie Sprague?
Yeah.
So Dan.
I don't
Sprague
know Dan, but I know Jackie.
Yep. So Dan, who's my best friend, he gets second place, which is always great because I like beating Sprague. But he gets second place.
Yeah.
And then we get first place, and we get big bass and big bag. So like we took home whatever it was, $160 or something like that. Okay. And so the next day, like I at this point had to get my son home and to bed because this is late, whatever. So the next day I split him into it because I make him put $1 in every time we fish because I didn't want him to have some buy-in, you know, to teach that. But anyway, so I split him in, which is not proportionate, but I did. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, here's your whatever, $80. Well, handing $80 to a 7-year-old is like handing $1 million to a 40-year-old.
Oh my God. Was he like, what do I do with
I was counting it out, and he's just like, I mean, this is like pirate treasure. I mean, he's never seen anything like this before.
He's hooked on bass fishing.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, I'm just telling you, you put your money in and you put your time and your effort in. We were a team, and I'm splitting you in. So then he's like counting this, and mom comes in, and like, you know, he's telling her the whole story and whatever. And so then finally we settle down, and I'm like, okay, well, Owen, now it's time for you to do your chores. And he's like, oh, yeah, Dad. And I'm like, okay, we got to do our chores. He's like, well, what do I have to do? I'm like, well, it's your turn to unload the dishwasher. And he's like, I don't want to unload the dishwasher. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, I'll give you $1 to unload the dishwasher. And he's like, Dad, why would I do the dishwasher for $1? I make money bass fishing.
Oh, God. Have fun with that.
I'm at that point, like instantly as a dad, I'm like, I've ruined my child. Yep. He will never get a real job. He is, and to this day, we read Bassmaster magazine before he goes to bed. Oh, that's all he wants to do.
Oh, lucky you.
When I left to come here, he was bass fishing off the dock. That's what he was doing, which is not even in season, but that's what he wanted to do.
If he's going to put his heart and soul into it,
whatever.
let him dive into it.
I know. I'm the perfect example of just dive off the cliff. I'm a history and philosophy student from the University of Minnesota Duluth. Like, I have no business doing what I'm doing.
You started him at the top.
I know.
He was at the top.
Oh, we had 2 tournaments where we didn't even weigh a fish. Didn't even catch a single fish. And now we got to go tail between our legs. And I made him like the guys who won, and we walked up with no bag, no fish in the bag and stuff. And he didn't even want to go up there because he's like, Dad, we failed, we lost, we didn't even catch a fish. And I'm like, nope, we got to go up, shake hands with the guys that won, just like they did to us. Mm-hmm. And you got to say, nice job, fishing, guys, and all that. And it's like sometimes that happens. Yeah. And so we were at the top and we were at the bottom all in one little season. And that's
all I hear about. So my father-in-law and my husband, they're the ones who do those fishing tournaments and stuff. They haven't for a couple of years, obviously, but I know his passion would love to go back and doing that again. And all he would come home and all I heard about was like the bass they caught and who did this, where they caught it. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, so I was throwing a square bill underneath the stock, and you're like, okay.
I will have to say, though, funny story. The first time I ever went fishing with him, we're on a skeeter, we're about bass fishing, and I've never fished really before. I enjoy it, but we're just sitting there, and he's out there just reeling away, and he throws it out, reels it back in right away, and I'm like, why don't you let it sit there or something? Like, let a fish see it, and he's just like, that's not how you do it, dear. He's like, this is designed to do this, to catch the fish, blah, 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 all this, stuff around it. Yeah. And I was just like, well, can you just, put one on mine? And he said, watch. And I literally said this, and he tells everyone this story. He's like, I'm like, well, let me just throw one in or something. So he taught me how to do it. I threw it in, and then we're kind of by weeds because we're fishing docks, and I got one. First cast. It wasn't my first time fishing, but it was as a couple, it was our first time doing it together. And I was like, I got one. He literally was like, it's probably just a weed, just yank in on it. And I was like, no, I mean Matt, I caught a bass, my first cast. Out on our first boating day together, ever dating, after I just got done telling him, why are you doing it like that? And I told him just ring me up one click, and I did it. He probably put some crappy ass little worm thing on it, nothing to do anything, just so he wouldn't have to deal with me.
Yeah.
And he got one.
Yeah, just sip your cocktail, honey, and just enjoy
the
sun.
I got one, and I didn't know how to really reel it in. It was just pulling it back and everything, and I was trying to lift it up without reeling it in too. Yeah. And I'm like, get it. He's like, you need to reel it. And I was like, I don't want to touch it.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Yeah, that's how it always happens.
That's the ongoing joke, is how I told him that you're doing it wrong. Let me do it, and I did it right away. And he goes, of course.
Well, the last 10 minutes of this podcast is you can tell him to tune into, and then he can give me a shout, and we can sit and talk bass fishing constantly.
You could have a podcast just fishing, talking about fishing.
That's actually,
Actually, you should do that, because he would be in heaven if he could talk about his fishing days.
I have 2 other guys, and I have a 4th spot. If he wants to do that, this is an open invite, Matt, to the guy I've never met, that you can come on and he can be the 4th guy, and we're literally going to talk nothing but the nerdiest fishing, electronics, rigs, setups, braid, fluoro, mono, knots, everything. It's going to be the nerdiest fishing podcast of all time.
I'll tell him.
You need to tell him.
Sounds really enjoyable.
If oh my gosh, it'd be the greatest. We'll have 0 views, but it will be the most fun.
You'll have one. I'll watch it.
Yeah, you'll watch it. I'll watch it. And I'll make him retell the story about how you told him how to fish.
There you go.
He said no, and you caught the fish anyway.
He's a lot funnier than I am, too.
Well,
I think he's a lot funnier than I am. He's really good at telling stories. So.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
You'll tell him, come on.
So what's the question is, what's the future of Graif Clothing?
Great question. If you would have asked me that when I bought the business, I would have never said a second store. So, I mean, who knows? There will not be another store. I'll say that. People are like, oh, is this a chain? Is this? No, it's not. Truthfully, I just really think that we've really landed where we need to be, where we should be, where it feels right to be. And I really still just want to continue the tradition of being the business that gives back to the community, provides what we provide. You know, I enjoy that. Like, we're getting to that point where I've been there long enough where, like, we did this person's wedding and then we did this person's wedding. And then they come in and they're like, I'm pregnant now. We did their wedding 2 years ago. And it's just like, and then I even have somebody who's like kids like 1 year old, and I'll see them and it's just like, oh, we did their wedding like 3 years ago. Now they're 1 year old and they still bring them in just to shop. And so I'm excited to start getting to that point where I can start, you know, I did their wedding and then their kids are probably going to come to us. And it's just continuing that tradition.
And that's so rewarding.
It's so rewarding.
When you see them over and over.
Like, my goal to be at Graif is to be that, like, oh, go see, you know, Marissa. She's taking care. I mean, obviously, my goal is for my entire staff, too. It's for me and my staff to be like, oh, go see Henry, go see Maddie, go see Julia Taylor. They've taken care of me for my wedding and our kids, blah, blah, blah. Like, you hear those stories of like, oh, I used to shop at Graif and I had my son buy Graif. I bought my kid a suit 5 years old, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like fun to have those stories. I'm old school like that. So that's my goal with Graif. And I think that's just why I'm a right match. It's a right fit for me.
That small town mentality of knowing who you're doing business with and not just a transaction. And treating your staff like you do as much more of an intricate part of the business, not just, hey, you're going to be here for 6 months and leave.
Point, with how much we've gone through this last year. I mean, I have to show you this picture. Just the other day, I mean, my 3-year-old is, I kind of think he was faking it because our 2-year-old was sick, and so he kind of like played it extra hard. I know him; he's really good at it. He's dramatic, but because when he got to the store, he was all just great. But you know, he's just feeling sick, and we had weekend plans. We didn't want to, you know, we wanted them just to get good and with just daycare in general. You know, just let him stay home and just relax for a day. So he came to work with me, and then in this like little extra suit room we have, he had his Paw Patrol blanket on the ground, watching his iPad. He was coming out then helping me with one of my good customers. I was tapering some pants, and he like held out the pin for me. He'd pull out the pin of the tomato, but then he would like point the pin part at me. He's like, "Here you go, Mom." And I'm like, thanks. You know, like, flip it around.
Yeah,
thanks.
that's the dangerous end. But anyway.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's just your family. Maddie, she was bringing her first grader in for distance learning. If they had distance learning day, we had a little distance learning room for Harper, where she sat there and made like a little makeshift desk, and the teacher's like, find something yellow. She's like, here's a yellow tie. You know, it's just stuff like that. We just on our live a couple weeks ago, Henry stayed late with me and did it. And then his wife, she's like, are you going to be hungry? Do you want me to cook you supper? And, you know, they have a almost 2-year-old Arthur. Is he 2? Oh, God. Sorry, Hank. It's like the same age as Conway. He's 2. And he was in the live, like running around in the background. So I was like, she's like, we'll leave before you're live. I'm like, just stay, Kaylin. I don't care if Arthur's in it.
Yeah.
I'm like, just stay. And she like made me chicken nuggets and stuff. She's like, you're probably hungry. I'm like, I'm starving. And my tailors always bring me like muffins and stuff.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. I mean, we're just at that point where we've been through so much. It's just kind of like, let's just be here for each other.
That's so unique that you don't get that from very many businesses.
I would have never had any of my other jobs.
No.
Nothing.
Not working at was it Abercrombie and right?
Well, I was like 18 then. That doesn't count.
Yeah. But like just as an example,
don't even admit that.
But you're never going to get that.
You're never going to. No.
And Hollister.
Well, it's Hollister.
Because you were doing the spritzing.
The spritzing, yeah.
So that was true. That's why you
yeah.
walk in and it was just like, woof, like this whole.
Oh, that's true.
Wow. Was that something that they did like did they prove scientifically that it got people all excited and they would buy stuff, or why did they do that?
Well, it was watered down. There was their cologne scent, but watered down to make it longer lasting. So it'd be like an underwhelming version, which, I mean, you went in there still very overwhelming because you're spritzing every half hour in their spritz zones. But I mean, you would recognize today, I can assure you, any person nowadays would be like, that's from Hollister.
Yeah.
That's that scent.
Yes.
Like their cologne sales through the roof for that reason. So I'm sure there's some scientific reason.
Yeah, there probably is.
Yeah. Like you walk and you like can smell the Hollister and you're like, that's Hollister. Like you just know it.
I knew 100%. Like when you would walk by, if you were blindfolded, you would know maybe Bath and Body Works and you would know Hollister. Those are the only two stores that you would walk by the entire River Hills Mall and you would only sell
I'm
stores.
Sure if you walk past somebody in the mall and you're like, oh, that's Hollister, I should go to Hollister. I'm sure there's some like...
At least you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
So a couple things is one, where is the store in Owatonna for those that haven't been there?
So we're downtown Owatonna. There's kind of like different sectors of Owatonna I've learned, but we're in downtown Owatonna, so we're 202 Bridge Street.
Okay.
Which is like an Oak Street, which I've learned Oak is like their busiest downtown street.
Yep.
Which I didn't even realize that at the time. I've learned that. But Bridge Street is what leads into downtown. So we're like truly right on the corner, like with a full corner.
You're not by the fire station, are you? That's
like,
the other one.
Here's the fire station.
Yep.
Go here. And here, we're right here on the corner.
Yeah.
So it's like a block and a block.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know exactly where you're at.
Yeah. Yep.
Because, long story short is I originally started in my business with Thrivent, and we would have, like, in that area, there was some office space that we met at and whatever. But, so I know exactly where that is, never having been there.
We have, like, that full corner there, and it's a beautiful, I mean, it just turned out so beautiful.
Well, so the stuff that I've seen, I haven't been there yet because I don't drive to Owatonna that often, unless I go to Cabela's, but that's a different story. Maybe I should meet your husband there. We could have a great time. But
I'll make my husband drive over on a Sunday when we're trying to do work stuff, so I can do. I'm like that's like my go-to activity. If my husband doesn't want to do anything, I'm like, because the kids love the animals. Yes. My 2-year-old is obsessed.
Yes.
I mean, he's gonna be our animal person.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, can we at least just go to Cabela's then?
Yeah.
Like just to do an activity.
See the fish,
like,
watch
let him
the
run
animals.
Around. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
There's an activity.
It's
for
perfect. It's perfect. But okay, so where can they find all the stuff like on Instagram? And because that's very entertaining.
I mean, honestly, just follow our social media. Okay. I mean, just follow our Facebook, follow our Instagram. We usually post pretty consistently. I mean, we're pretty on top of it. That's going to be where you see anything we have going on.
Is that Graif Clothing?
Just Graif Clothing. Okay. Yeah, just Graif Clothing. I mean, we do our live sales on Facebook. I think we actually get probably more interaction just from our Instagrams than we do Facebook. It's just a completely different viewer. Yep. But just our website too, graifclothing.com.
Do you have any like upcoming sales or anybody that watches this episode that gets like 10% off or anything like that? To put you on the spot.
Do you want me to do that, man?
We should totally do that because I want to be like,
the
Sillman Podcast sponsored by Graif Clothing.
You'll be entered into a giveaway. Like the go-to thing.
Oh, totally, yeah.
I'll give you 10% off if you mention that you watched this podcast. Actually, I did have people come in, though, and say, I watched your podcast, Matt's my neighbor, or this or that. And I was like, super cool.
I talked to that neighbor. Did you? Absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, he did. He was super nice. I got a sweater for him.
Yep.
2 sweaters, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I was.
Hi, neighbor.
Yeah.
I remember you.
I'll have to ask him if we could talk about him on the show next time or whatever. But yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. He walked over and he every time I see him, he and I talk about it. He's like, so who's on the podcast next? He's a big fan of it. So he really likes it. But anyway.
He was super nice.
Oh my gosh. So there we go. Now we have we got a promo code, whatever that is, like SOMN.
SOMN.
Promo code.
Just so you saw us, I'll give you a discount.
We're so legit now. We got stickers. We got promo codes. If you share this,
I'll give you an extra discount.
Look at that. Oh my gosh. We're like big time now.
I know.
And I put you on the spot about it.
I know.
Oh, so
Matt's paying for it. Don't worry.
Don't worry. Yeah.
We'll come in and buy something.
I'll figure it out. We'll make it. Make it worth it. But first, I want to say super thank you for the first episode that you were on, because it was the first episode. I didn't tell you because we were just such an illegitimate podcast at that point.
Hey,
now
I was just driving by Graif and we're doing this podcast and we're just gonna like feature, you're a women business owner, so do you want to like be on the podcast and talk about that? Yeah, that sounds fun. Okay, cool. I'll just call you or text you like with the date. Yeah, sure.
I know you don't really know me, but I've been in your store a couple times. But you want to do this? Anyway.
I know you, but yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. So, first of all, thank you so much for
You're
number
welcome.
one, being on the first time and putting up with all the stuff the first time, and then having enough confidence in us that we were going to super suck this up the second time.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad it's going well.
oh my gosh, this is so much fun. Like, I have had so much fun doing this
Yeah.
and talking to people and enjoying it because it after a certain amount of time, just like you, I enjoy interpersonal communication.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that for a while, it's like, dude, I need to talk to people. And what's so cool about this long form part of it is I learned stuff that you just don't know about people.
Yeah.
You're never going to, like, we see each other at Fire and Ice. I'm never going to know all this stuff that you've done, talked about, figured out, whatever. I want to say, again, thank you for being on, taking the time. I know you're super busy right now. You have a ton of stuff going on, of which probably only shared a little bit of what's actually really going on. So I want to thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you for the promo code now that we're super legit. That we're like, if you mention Soman Podcast.
Soman Podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Just share it too.
Yes, and if you share it, you get extra gear and stuff and fun.
Extra gear.
You should actually.
You'll get a sticker.
Yeah, there we go. I should hand you all these, and the people that come back or like come by the store and ask for them, you just hand them out. Be totally dope. All right, you're gonna get all of them. You got the rest of mine. Yeah. So, all right, that's enough. Before I give away all of our stuff and you give away all of yours, we're gonna say bye, everybody.